Welcome to the Slice of Time Street Photography Podcast, a podcast in which I explore the work of different street photographers across the world, genres and visions. And this, of course, is to expose ourselves to different ideas, ways of looking, and helping you and me to form our own vision of street photography. And today I'm joined by Aude Delannoy Dib. I hope I pronounced it right.
Correct.
A street photographer from originally from France, but living in Dubai. And her work spoke to me because of the vibrant and very multi-layered compositions with a lot of colors. So I think we'll be talking into that. So maybe Aude, you could introduce yourself for a second there.
Yeah, good morning, Frédéric, and thank you so much for having me today to talk about photography, my favorite subject of all subjects, I think. Introduce myself.
That's a difficult one, right?
Yeah, I think that's the most difficult. That's the question I didn't want to answer to, and I didn't,
Oh, okay.
never prepare. You never prepare to answer to that question. Originally, I'm French, but I was lucky enough to live in different countries all along my life. It started with South Africa as I was a baby, and then as a teenager, we moved as a family to England for a couple of years, and then I was back in France to study. And I think those experiences living abroad led me to choose to study business, because I saw that then it would be easier for me to travel, to work abroad, which I did. And when I started my working career, I studied in Paris, but then I moved to Milan for a couple of years. So I worked in corporate business for many years before I moved to London to be with my future husband, and there I stopped working, and I decided to do something completely different that I always wanted to do, but I had put aside, which was to apply for an art school. And the UK have something that at the time was really great, that whatever your age, you could always apply to study somewhere. So at the time I was about 28, I think. So I applied, I did a foundation course and I applied to art schools, and 3 of the main London art school accepted me. So I did a BA, decided to do it at Chelsea Art School, a BA in painting. So, I dedicated then my life to painting for many years until I had my 3 children. And then it became really, I was painting on very big canvas and very colorful, but it took a lot of space, a lot of time. And with 3 children, it became really unmanageable. And my husband said to me, we've got all these messy paintings and paints everywhere. You have to do something about it. So I decided to quit painting and to take a camera instead. First, it was to document my children, I think. And I needed an artistic way of express myself. And it was, from painting, it shifted to photography. And of course, just, photographing my children wasn't enough for me. So I had to imagine some scenarios in which they were playing kind of an act, so that I would take pictures of that. And I did this for many, many years until they became teenagers, and they said to me, "That's it. We've had enough. We feel exposed. We don't want to do this anymore. What are you going to do with those pictures? What about if our friends, see it on social medias?" So they put an end to it, and it kind of coincided with the times that we moved as a family. We moved to the UAE in Abu Dhabi first, so it was in 2016, 10 years ago. And I said, okay, what shall I do now? I took my camera and I went in the streets, which wasn't an easy choice, because in the UAE, you're not allowed to take photography of people without their consent, at least without their consent. So you would ideally, what they say is that you should have consent forms in your backpack. And each time you take a picture of someone, you get them to sign the form, which is not really the spirit of street photography. So I think I really started photographing, not buildings, but having in my composition less people, of course, because I was really afraid. And I got really told off so many times by security people that, it kind of put you off. So I decided to go to industrial areas where there was still security people, but the people in the street, they were workers and they didn't really mind me taking pictures. But anyway, 1 year after 1 year, I mean, I explored different areas in the UAE, and I came out to find that in Dubai, living in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, people were more relaxed in certain areas. So I would start traveling to Dubai to take photography. And in 2019, we actually moved to Dubai. So that's where my street photography really started to pick up. And I would go to very old places, areas of Dubai, where again, people didn't mind being taken, to being photographed. And it was easier for me to try to do something in the streets. Um, I don't know if I've
Okay,
really
well,
been talking about myself. I've already started talking about photography.
no, but I mean, we're going to talk about your photography. So you are a very essential part in that, I think. So to me, it's interesting. So did you do any photography during the painting already, or was it more like really a hard
It was a hard
pivot?
transition.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I didn't really take any photograph. No, that wasn't something I was doing. I remember asking even my husband, buy me a camera, a small camera, so I can take pictures of the children so that we don't miss all those moments because they're growing so
Yeah.
fast. And my camera was something very basic, my first camera, very basic with I don't even remember the brand, but something very cheap. And I didn't really care about, you know, um, the results of what I was taking. It was more to document something. It then evolved into some more artistic practice, I would say, with time. But that wasn't the aim at first.
Okay, cool. And so to me, I don't know your paintings, but I can easily imagine your street photography being influenced by your painting style, because it's very colorful, very well layered, but also you have these line of surfaces, sort of speak, in every photo. So is there
Geometry,
is
so yeah, there's a lot of geometry. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I tried to say, but I didn't find the word. But was it something that came from your paintings then as well? Or is it totally different style?
It's totally different. My paintings were figuratives. I was painting people. I was making portraits of people, and only that. And I had a hard time inventing a background to it because for me, the main focus were the subjects. And I remember in art school, they were always telling me, but what about background? And I said, well, the background doesn't really interest me. I'm only interested in the people. And now in photography, I would say it's completely the opposite. Because for me, the people in my photographs are not the subject. The subject is is the background, the foreground, the middle ground, the geometry. The light, of course, is the subject of my photography, the color, but not the people anymore. So it's a complete shift to what I used to do in painting. But what remains is a color. The color is always a center stage in my photography, and is always is in my painting, because I'm still painting today. I'm still drawing. I haven't quit this. Yeah, that's what I took from painting, the color. And the composition, of course, probably the composition as well.
Because it's fairly similar, I assume the ideas and the rules in painting and
Yeah.
photography. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a white, square, rectangular canvas, like a frame in a picture, and you need to fill it in. And it's probably why, you're telling me that it's true that some people tell me that my frames in photography are full, very full. There's a lot of things everywhere. But I think it's probably, you know, um, coming from my painting, where you feel you need to compose and to balance and to have the eye go around the painting. There's always little things that should attract the eye. And I think I try to do the same in photography, probably.
Yeah. I had the question actually written down that you have a very up close approach, like you go really close into your subjects, not necessarily people, but your subjects, filling your frames, as you said, and like. I wrote down not into minimalism because your frames are very full and very
Mm,
colorful,
mm.
which I really appreciate. But it's not easy to do, I think, and it's also not easy to spot always because lots of elements ask for lots of attention, of course. So I can imagine your photo walks being mentally exhausting after a while, that because of all the things you try to organize. And so you started out in Abu Dhabi with street photography.
Yes.
Uh, and that's because that's immediately, of course, a very restricted place to do that genre. So I can imagine you got a really quick course in how to maintain yourself and how to behave in the street. And because you also go to other places, those places became easier to you, or yeah.
There are many questions in your question.
Sorry, yeah.
No. I mean, I just wanted to say, before I answer to these questions, you were talking about mental. You said it must be very mentally exhausting to
Yeah.
compose a picture. Actually, it's the contrary. I go in the street to relax and to empty my mind. And it's true, as I empty my mind, I fill in the frames. I mean, it's not exhausting. It's a game for me. It really is. When I enter the street and I see, there's always something that's gonna, um, you know, captivate my eye. I'm gonna see something. It's probably a color, a shadow, or something. And as I get closer, and I'm trying to imagine what I can put in the frame, and I'm gonna try to move so I can get as many things as possible in that frame to make it complex, more interesting, intricating, interrogating. And if I can't fill the frame, usually I leave the place and I try something else. So it's not exhausting for me. It's emptying my mind and it's a game. Then to go back to your question,
It was about the restrictions in Abu
the
Dhabi and
restrictions. Yeah.
Dubai. I
I
can
get.
imagine
Yeah,
as
I
well.
remember
And
now. When I was the first years I was photographing in the UAE, and as you said, there were a lot of restrictions, and then the fear as well to be caught and to be told off. It's never nice. And so I wasn't always going in the street with a very light mind. I was afraid of what could happen. But this probably taught me to master my fear to go to do things that I'm not allowed to. And nowadays, I probably go very close to people because I've been used to doing things I'm not supposed to do. And it's not easy to do something you're not supposed to do and to hide from it, to hide what you're doing. And it's not easy to go very close to people because you never know what their reaction is going to be. So that's what you fear the most, the people's reaction. But with time, you experience the fact that although the people, when they notice they are being photographed, 99% of the time, they're going to be, to have a very puzzling face. They will glance at you with interrogation, but it can be interpreted as, anger. But it's not anger, because as soon as you smile to the person, or you wink, or you wave, or you say thank you, 99.9% of the time, the people are going to smile back at you, and they won't mind. It's just that wonder of what are you doing, in their eye, they're questioning. But when you tell them, listen, look at me, I'm having fun. It's nothing, that nothing important is going on. And I'm not stealing anything. I'm part of that moment and I'm just recording that moment. People are really relaxed about it. So then traveling abroad, you were mentioning about traveling abroad. It's when I decided that photography was something important for me and I couldn't self-teach myself all the time. I needed to be taught properly. Even, the part of editing my photos or where do I download them, I had no clue about that. And I was really clueless. And through Instagram, you meet people virtually, of course, but you do meet people and you discuss with them. And I saw this guy who seemed to attract a lot of very good photographers, who was organizing workshops, mainly in Asia, um, and who's called Maciek Dakovic. And I said, okay, I need to do a workshop with that guy to, you know, to do what I'm doing properly. So finally I was able to find a spot in one of his workshops, and it took me a couple of years because he's very popular. And I went to Lahore in Pakistan for the first time with him. And, he taught me everything, the basic of street photography, not in terms of how to frame, but what to do when when you need to download it, and to Lightroom. I wasn't using Lightroom, and to name it, and to order your photos, to give them stars, and all that helped me a great deal. And of course, going to countries, you don't necessarily think you can go on your own when you're a woman to Pakistan, which is wrong, because now I would go on my own without any problem. But he helped me, go around countries which I wasn't feeling too comfortable to go on my own. Then, I decided to go every year, and I'm going on a workshop with him. So this year I was in Bangkok. The year before I was in 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 Bangladesh. So this helped me a lot to become a better photographer, and to to widen my knowledge of photography, and how to react in the street, and how to frame, and what to do with my photo afterwards.
Yeah.
Is it answering your question?
Yeah. I mean, if it's there's a lot of information in there. If it's answering my question, that's fine. But I find it interesting to see where people take some questions. And there's two things that came up to me, but I'm going to start with one. Is at first you mentioned, you start filling your frame, you start looking for all these elements. Do you take the pictures meanwhile, or is it more like a painting where you make your composition first and then you take the one shot, so to speak, just like with paintings where it's you can't just start filling canvases, of course, with you can't make 100 canvases for one final painting, which you can do with photography. Are you very selective with your shots, or are you kind of like me, an overshooter? Or
I try not to be an overshooter. I used to, and now I'm more picky about what's happening. So I'm really trying to fill my frame and to have what I like in the frame before I actually shoot. But then there will be the human element passing through your frame, which is usually the one you're expecting to as a finishing touch to it. And this, of course, it can take a lot of time to wait for someone to cross the frame before I would shoot whomever would enter the frame. Now I'm very picky. Like, okay, it needs to be in the color in the color palette I have here. It needs to be a woman or a man, or I'm more picky about what I'm going to shoot. But of course, if a scene is really exciting, and I think I have a very interesting framing, we're not talking about we're talking about a picture that I compose, not a picture that I take because I see an action of something that is happening. So if
Yeah.
I compose something, I'm going to really compose a frame, and then I'm going to wait, of course, for something to happen. And then I will start to shoot when someone's crossing. But I'm not going to make 3 or 5 photos of that person crossing. It's just one. But then, I might stay half an hour in the place, in the same spot, and shoot different people who come, who cross that frame. But I still have, when I'm doing so, if I decided I am going to stay some time to get what I want, what I have in mind, I will force myself just to put down the camera and say, okay, what can I include more in that framing? What angle maybe is better than the one I think is really good? And most of the time, you can always add something. You can always bend down or, or add something or take something out of it that is going to make your photo better. And that's an exercise. I try not to say, okay, I'm here now and I'm not moving because this seems perfect. No, kick yourself and move and try to include something or to exclude something. It's like in painting, you have to try. You can't say, okay, it is as it is now, it's perfect, I'm not touching anything. No, dare to do something completely different. Dare to destroy that composed image you have and to try something completely different. And you'll be surprised. Sometimes it's going to work better. Sometimes it's not going to work at all. And you're going to say, okay, I had it best the first time. But just don't be stuck in one place and don't overshoot. Think more. Before shooting, think more, I would say. I mean, that's what I try to do.
Yeah. But to me, it's interesting because recently I've been learning or finding myself stuck in between these rules. Like you said, for example, compose more, think more about it in advance. But you have other street photographers, and I find it super interesting, who are more like intuitive and they just shoot the action. And you're both correct. But I think as a street photographer, so that's also why I do this podcast, like you have to listen and find what works for you and then do that. So for example, for me, I have to start thinking. I noticed recently that to me, it helps to slow down a bit and force myself to slow down a bit because I'm a person, I won't wait at a spot for 2 minutes. Like to me, that's already long. I just heard you say half an hour in one spot. To me, that's crazy. But it does help me to say like, okay, maybe I should try 5 minutes in one place. And then I usually get a better shot than I had when I just walked past and took it quickly. But it might not work for others. So I think it's very interesting that you said like, this is how I think and works for me and what I do. So yeah, that's a very good approach. And then the second question I had at first was, you mentioned these workshops you follow like yearly. You also mentioned going to art school in London for your painting. Do you find it necessary or important to have like an education, which can be in all forms, of course? It could be like an actual school, it could be workshops, it could be whatever. But do you think that's something that really helped you advance quicker or better or further than you could have done yourself?
I do. It's not really education. It's exchanging with people who have the same mindset as you. Nowadays, it's easy because we've got, through internet, through Instagram, we meet so many people. Before we were just on our own in the practice and we didn't know if what we were doing was right or wrong. And there was no, apart from the books of masters of photography, you would see the pictures and try maybe to replicate or to understand what they were doing. You had no one really who would look at your picture and say, this is right, this is wrong, this is why it's right, and this is why it's not working. So it's more this I'm looking for when I'm doing those workshops, is to have someone who, at the end of the day, looks at the 10 best pictures, what you think are the 10 best pictures you took of the day, not your 1,000 pictures, just your 10 best or your 20 best. You show that person your 20 best, and he's got the eye, he's got the experience to tell you, okay, this is not working or this is working, and the reason why. So that the next day you go back in the street and you say, okay, I have to think about that. Because this is a common mistake I make. Like, for instance, you get too close to your subject and then you crop too many things that are important, or you're too backward, you should step into the scene more, So then the next day, you're in the workshop, you go back in the street for the whole day, and you have this in mind, and it makes you progress, uh, much faster than if you're on your own and you look at your picture and you say, no, I like it. No, you're not going to progress by looking at your pictures and thinking you like them. You're going to progress if somebody tells you, this is not working. You think it's working, but it's not. And points at you what is not working. So now you're going to tell me, but this is very subjective because everyone is going to see something different in your picture. Yes, and that's why you need to find somebody whom I'm not even going to say whose work you admire, because you don't, but somebody whom you trust, whom whose advice you trust, because you see that they make sense for you, and you see that you progress a lot with these people, this person's advice. I've done workshop with other people who probably didn't bring me as much as the person I was talking about, Maciek. So that's why I carry on going to his workshop.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question?
Very much. And I think a very important point you also touch on there is the explaining why, like why something doesn't work, instead of just saying like feedback. There has to be a
Constructive.
reason to it. Yeah, constructive. Or
Constructive.
there have to
Yeah.
be like, it doesn't
Yeah,
work and this is why, and not
of
just it
course.
doesn't work. I don't
Of
feel the
course.
photo. Okay, cool. It has to. And I think that's very important that you mentioned that, because I think a lot of people, especially with Instagram, it's a lot of, this is a bad photo. Okay, that's fine. You can think that, but why do you think that? And also the other way around, I think is very important. Like, this is a good photo, and this is why.
Why is
And
it
as you
working?
said, then you can go
Adjust.
further into that, adjust,
Mm.
or continue with what you're doing. And I think that's a very important. So, do you sometimes take the time to look at your own work and really give that critique yourself? Like, say, like, okay, this doesn't work, or I thought this worked at the time, but now it doesn't, and this is why? Or do you try
I
to
do this
keep
all the
it
time.
all the time?
I do this all the time. I mean, every time I come back from a photo session, some people will tell you have to let it sit for a time, for a while before you look at them. I'm not that kind of person. I need to have a look at them first, first to eliminate all the ones that I think are terrible. And I don't just eliminate them. I just erase them from everything I have.
Really?
And yeah, I need to tidy up what I've been doing. I need to, yeah, that thing of tidying up and having just reduce the number to something that is decent is very important to me. So yeah, of course, the first day I'm very harsh with myself. I think I'm quite harsh with myself, and I'm happy about that. So I would eliminate a lot of photos, and then I will just select a couple that I think work. But the next day, even a week later, when I look at them, I might think that they don't work at all, because when you just been doing the photos, you're still I mean, whatever you've been doing, you emotionally attached to your photos because they are yours. These are like your babies. That's what you made.
Yeah.
And a week later, you've lost, maybe, or months later, you've lost this emotional attachment to that particular moment, to that photos, and you just see it as it is, and you might think, what could I ever find in this photo that was working? Nothing is working. So I would say that's a problem I have, is that I'm always excited about the work I'm doing on the daily basis, the day I discovered them, and I'm less excited as I see it with time, um, because I judge it more, and I tend to focus on the things, or the little things that don't work, instead of saying, okay, overall it's working. No, I'm going to see the small mistake
Yeah.
that I've made, that I think it unbalances it all, and it's probably not something good, because I
No,
can't
yeah,
really
it's
appreciate what I've done in the past. I only appreciate what I'm doing today.
sounds familiar. Yeah, to me as well. I come home, I edit photos, and the day after I go out again, and I'm done with the photos from the day before. So it's like I love them, and then I make new ones, and then I love those more.
Yeah,
And it's always shifting.
yeah.
But so it sounds very familiar. And so we talked a bit about the your first camera. You don't know which one it is. Is the camera to you these days more important, or do you still just have like one camera that you use with one lens, and you don't really care what it is? Or how do you look at the technical side of it?
I'm not going to say that I don't care, because I used to have, when I started that first workshop with Maciek, I was using an Olympus OMD, and he kept telling me, you should change because it's very old, it's 8 years old, and it's not good. And I said, well, I was very stubborn. I said, as long as it's working, I'm using it. I'm not going to change until it dies on me. And of course, one day it died on me, and it was two and a
Of
half
course.
years ago. And 2.5 years ago, I finally got a proper camera that he was suggesting. He always suggested to me that I should have a Fujifilm camera, and I finally bought a Fujifilm. I got the X100 Fujifilm. So it is important in the sense that I need a camera that is reliable and that's gonna give me a good quality picture. But that's it. Then I have one camera, and this camera has a fixed lens, and there's no, I'm not trying to play with different cameras, different lenses, and all that. So I have something that is reliable, and that's all I'm asking, really.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And I think that's a good way to go. But yeah, I was wondering because you mentioned you weren't really into the cameras, and I think that's a very interesting point as well. And also you mentioned via the workshop you started using Lightroom. Is that something, because of course there's, well, with the masking you can do some painting, but it's there's of course differences. But do you enjoy the process of editing your photos, or is it more a necessary evil? I see you nodding no already.
It is a necessary evil, but I said the first part before I do anything with my photo is more how to archive my photo first. Is to make sense in how to archive it. Is it by mm, um, um, date or place or event? And so this is something important so that you can find your work easily when you're looking for it. And Lightroom, helps me, as I said, to download from 1,000 pictures to just 100 by erasing everything. And when there are a couple that I like, then I'm gonna do some very, I'm not really into that, but I will do a couple of, retouch the colors. I mean, retouch the colors, enhance the colors, or the darks, and enhance a bit of all those little subtle things that will enhance your photo. Because when I started um, showing my photos, people would always tell me that that I should be editing them a little bit. They were too raw in a way, and I never really understood what it meant. But now I think I do, because some people took the time to explain to me that you can't really just shoot a picture and and, and send it as it is wherever you want it to be seen. So now I'm doing a little bit of editing, but it's nothing dramatic, and I'm not really good at it. I know I took I think I took a day course of Lightroom, and I didn't understand half of what they were talking about.
It can
When they
become
went to,
complicated, yeah.
completely changing your photos. Like you've got a pink, a pink flower, and they make it blue or green or whatever. And this process, I said, that's not what I want to do. So I think I shut down on how to do these things. Because some people, that's what they like. They like to play completely. You can do crazy things, very artistic things with a photo on Lightroom, and that's not what I'm interested to do. So.
True. No, yeah, you can go way too far in Lightroom, but yeah, for me as well, keep it natural and just enhance
Mm,
some
mm.
things. So I understand. So on your website, I saw you called yourself an observer of emotions, which to me was very interesting because, and you mentioned earlier that the people are less important in your photo, or like they're not less important, but they're not the main subject. But I think they provide a lot of emotions in your photos as well. So why is that emotion so important to you?
Mm. I think there was, from the beginning, I wanted to make the distinction between two types of photos. I mean, that's where I see it. There are the photos that I compose, we were talking about, where you really compose a photo because because you've got not much happening in the street. So when you in a city or in a street and nothing is happening, but still you find that the color and the shadows and the atmosphere is interesting, and your heart beats because you see all this and you want to frame it in a way that looks amazing to you. So this is one type of photo, and the other type of photo is actually you in a place where it's that people everywhere, it's buzzing, and things happen just in front of you, extraordinary things for you, but ordinary things for everyone around you. But it's a gesture, it's the way people are being dressed, or how they move, or something crazy happening, like a cat jumping from the roof onto a place, plate of food or whatever. This is another type of photo where you don't have time to compose and to think on how you're gonna frame. You just need to be very, very quick to compose something without the thing before the scene disappears. It's just 1 second and everything changes. So these are two different skills, I would say. But the first one probably helps you to compose the second one quickly. If you are used to compose, then probably when you have to do it
Yeah.
in a very in a split second, you are trained to do it. Of course, you're gonna miss you're gonna miss a lot of scenes because sometimes you're not prepared, or your eyes doesn't see where you should stand to get the most out of the scene. But with practice, you get that. And going into busy cities, like I was in Istanbul a month ago, it's just amazing for this practice, because it's like diving into the crowd. You dive into the crowd, and you're trying to compose something. You want to give shape to the movement of the people, of what's happening in the place. So to go back to your question, because uh, I've not been answering. We're talking about
I
emotions.
love it.
Why am I
Yeah.
talking about emotions? For two reasons. The first thing is, I think that colors carry a lot of emotions. Every city has a different palette of colors. Some cities will be more, not, I'm not going to say dull, but you have a lot of grays and
No, I
blues,
was
and,
immediately thinking about Antwerp being very gray. Yeah. Yeah.
but
So
more sad colors, and it gives a mood of the place. So it's the emotion of the place as well. And when you go to thousand countries, like, in Italy, the south of France, you have a lot of red and yellow and orange, and the sun is very bright. It's a lot of saturation, and it also gives a mood of the place. So it's also an emotion. So that's the color being an emotion. So that's why I try to capture. And then there is the emotion, of course, as you said, of the people. When I'm actually stepping into a scene where there's a lot of people, there's a crowd, you're capturing the emotion of the moment, of the place where you are, because you are capturing the movement, like the cinematic movement of what is happening at that time. So it's capturing the emotion of the place as well.
yeah, I think you do that brilliantly. So that's definitely great.
Very kind.
And so on your website, I also saw you like to work with series, like combined photos. Is that something you're often thinking about, or is that just something at some point you tell yourself, I have to make a series of this? Or how does that process look for you?
That's a very good question, and an interesting one. Um, I say both. Sometimes, like last summer, went I went to Copenhagen for the first time. I'd never been in the place when I started shooting, and I saw that I was very attracted by what was unusual to me in that city, which were that although in the middle of a city, people, as soon as there is sunshine, they would undress, be in swimming costume, and on the pavement or wherever they find place, they just want to bathe in the sun and to be next to the water. There's a lot of water in the city everywhere. So you've got all these people undressing and taking the sun and sunbathing in the middle of the city. And that is very unusual. So I started taking pictures of that. And at the end, I thought, oh, wow. When I came back, I said, I've got so many pictures of this. That makes a great series. I mean, that's that. And actually, I want to go back to go deeper into that subject and to make something that is coherent, a coherent series. So that's one way of doing it. And another way would be, again, we're going to take the example of Istanbul. Istanbul, as I said, I like the colors, and I like the light. Light is my main subject. And after 2 days, there was just rain and bad weather for the rest of the week. So I was feeling very depressed, and I was thinking, okay, I'm not going to be depressed for 1 week and wander around the street and feeling sorry for myself. So I need to find an idea, something to do during those days so that I don't waste my time. And I thought of a series. I thought of some things that I would never do. I decided to photograph all the, do you call the graffitis? Do you call
Yeah,
what when people paint on the walls and
graffiti. Yeah, yeah.
graffitis? So it's a place where on the walls of the city there are so many layers of people painting and drawing and sticking stuff on the wall. And at the end, I find it absolutely amazing. I mean, it attracted me as soon as I arrived in the city, but that wasn't my main subject. So I just saw it, but that's not what I was photographing. But as the weather deteriorated, I said, I need to do something with that. So I was obsessed with photographing those graffitis, but to frame them in a certain way that to make them interesting. Again, not just photograph them to document them, but to frame them in a way that was interesting. And then I said, yeah, then I'm going to combine these. When I got home, I said, I'm going to combine those graffitis, with those photos of graffitis, with photos that I actually took in Istanbul that echo those graffitis. And that's what so I've started a series like that. So some series I start as a real, I think about it and I'm
In advance. Yeah.
actually making it happen. And other times it's just coming back from a place or from a travel. You realize that you have photographed a lot of things that have same subject, that has the same subject or have the same idea behind, and you want to dwell more on that, and you carry on.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. And so I also find it very interesting that because a lot of street photographers would, they would feel sorry for themselves, I think, when they're in Istanbul and it would rain. Because I also don't think, I'm not sure how often it rains there, but I think it's, you really chose the one week
Wasn't lucky.
where it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's great. And for me as well, like I kind of like the emotion of the rain. Well, also because we have a lot of it here in Belgium, but there is a certain, like people still have to go to places and there's some kind of resilience in it. But anyway, I think I find it very interesting that you still decided I have to work with this. Like this is the hand I'm dealt. So I think, and is that something that just happened that one week, or is that something that you often find that there's like some kind of resistance? Of course, in this case, it's the weather, but it could be as well with the rules in the UAE, but also other things that you seem to find your way to turn those
Mm.
problems around.
Um, I think now my motto is is the fact that limitation is the source of creativity, and that's what I've put on my Instagram page as well now. As I think the more constrained you are, the more creative you are, and the more creative you are, the less boring what you do is, because you have to think more about what you are doing. And being impulsive is great to a certain extent, because then you're going to repeat yourself. I think you're going to repeat yourself. But if you've got limitation, you have to think around those limitations to be able to still build something. And this I learned in the UAE, when nothing is really happening in the street. And even if something is happening, you're not really allowed to take it. So it's a lot of constraints. So you have to be creative. And being creative makes you develop certain parts of your brain where you even when the place is busy, you still have that creativity that has been growing in your mind, and you still apply it to your photography when things are easier in a way. I mean, I hope so. That's how I
Yeah,
feel.
makes total sense. And so, do you sometimes give yourself these constraints, or do you
No, I don't
just try
need
to?
to.
No,
I
okay,
feel I have
you
them
don't need to.
naturally. Yeah, you always have constraints. As I said, weather like, you want sunshine because you feel I feel inspired, excited when I know, when it's sunny and I'm somewhere. I'm so excited when I see clouds. It completely drains my motivation. I don't even want to go out. I don't want to take my camera and to go out. But when you actually went to a place, like I went to Istanbul, I traveled to Istanbul to take photographs, and the weather is bad, what do? I mean, you have to force yourself to go out. So you have to think about, what shall I do to make it work? But when I'm at home, yeah, it's true. I could say, okay, okay, today the weather is bad. I'm not gonna bother. But then it's gonna be hot. Like here, it's really hot. It's 45 degrees outside. It's hot. I'm not going to shoot. So when am I shooting? So even when it's really hot, it's a constraint. So you have to force yourself to go out and say, when am I going to shoot? Because there's going to be no one in the street because it's really hot. You're the only crazy person outside with this weather. So what are you going to do? Okay, reflections of what? Reflections of whatever is feels interesting to you. Yeah, that would be another thing. What I do here, when it's really hot, there's no one in the street. I'm gonna try to work on reflections and wait for the only person in the street at that time to actually cross cross
Yeah,
the frame.
the other crazy person going outside at that time of day. And
Yeah.
do you like try to do street photography daily, or how does your rhythm in that case look?
Well, now it's really, really, really hot. So going daily, I mean, it's really painful. But I've been going daily until like 10 days ago. Because I was working on a project that I that came across. Um, I was It was about a month ago. I returned to a place I love to go at this time of the year, which is the only metro station where the people actually have to walk outside from the metro station to an area called Business Bay, where there's a lot of offices. Because all the other areas, you will have passerelle, you would have indoors,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't call it
kind of like
passage.
tunnels inside
Yeah,
the buildings.
tunnels
Yeah, yeah,
that makes you actually go wherever you want to go. But in this specific area, people have to go outside. So it means outside for me, there's sun, there is light, there's things happening, building in the background. So I said, okay, I need to go back. Every year I try to go around the month of May. And this place had completely changed because they are building some new stuff. So everything has changed. So I felt that the background of my photos were too similar. Every photos looked the same because the background was the same because there's this working, panels at the back. So all the pictures looked the same. And I said, well, I need to do something about it because I have some very interesting characters crossing my frame, but everything looks the same. So I worked on that project of isolating the person and darken. For once Lightroom, I used Lightroom a different way. I've really darkened to black the background just to have my subject come out as a single person or two or three people. And so I've decided I went back to that place every day at the same time for a couple of weeks to have this project complete and to be able to make a series that I'm pleased with of, about, you know, 30 pages of, each page is a diptych. So there are two people who match together.
yeah,
So that was for the question, are you going out daily? Yes. When I can, I do.
yeah.
I do, yeah.
And to me, that series sounds interesting because at some point, did you start recognizing the same people over and over again each day?
Yeah.
Because I assume that, yeah, they have their rhythm to go to work. So was that something that worked for you, that they were always the same people, or was that kind of another restriction, of course? But it's yeah, annoying because it's that same guy again, or
It's funny that you mentioned that. It's so funny because it is true that I do see, because I was going at the same time, I would see the same people, but we're talking about hundreds of people coming in the same direction at the same time within the same hours. It's really hundreds and hundreds of people, but you do recognize some people because they dress in a specific way, or they have a hat or something that makes them different, and you spot them like, oh, here's a guy with that specific hat. And I didn't mind because I knew, when I would recognize someone and I knew I had a picture of that person, I could concentrate on someone else, because again, there are hundreds of people coming. So I said, I've got a great picture of that guy. So let's shift my attention to someone else that is interesting. And I know I don't have a picture of this person. But this said, I have found myself with a portrait of several portraits of the same person. And I found it funny because when I was photographing, I didn't see I was photographing the same person. But then it makes links as well, because at the end, after a couple of weeks, people, they were expecting to see me. And many people like waved at me, or it was so funny because I became like, part of the scene. I was part of that scene. In the evening, they knew they would see me. So that was interesting.
And did you communicate then with them sometimes about the
A
series,
couple of
or
people,
were they
yeah.
completely unaware?
Sometimes some people stopped, very few, because it's the end of the day. People just want to go back home, and they're crossing this place very quickly because it's really hot. People are melting down. They just want to get over with that. That's true. 1 kilometer stretch. They want to get it over and go home. So, but some people question me. Some people would ask me what I was doing. Some people asked me to take pictures of them in a more formal way. So yes, but a few people compared to the numbers that actually came past me. Yeah.
And so you mentioned the heat. Wasn't it very hard on you then? You mentioned the people, wanting to go straight underground to hide from the sun. But you were there then in like the full sun, watching them for an hour, 2 hours. I'm not sure. Wasn't that very, very intense for yourself as well?
It's training. I would stay at least 2 hours, between 4 and 6. You can't imagine. I'm dripping. My clothes are completely wet, I'm heavy with sweat,
Yeah.
So
Your camera didn't fall out of your hand because of the sweats, luckily.
no, but the camera stops working at some point. There's always a moment when it's overheating, and you've got this red signal like overheating. I have to, get it to the shade and wait a little bit before I can go back to it. Yeah. But all those people, they're not like me. I'm only wearing, of course, a hat. At least it's a minimum. But all those people, they have umbrellas to protect themselves. Or some people have, they all wear something. They all wear something to protect them from the sun. I'm the only one unprotected in a way, and staying for much longer there. But it is physical. It's draining. It is draining physically, of course, especially at this time of the year.
That's why you only kept that at a month, or is it? Yeah.
Why the month is because at the time of here the sun goes down very early. So these are the longest days of the year, and it's dark at 6:30, 7. It's completely dark. So if I go in winter there, it's going to be dark at 4:00. 4:30 is going to be dark. And people start coming out from the office at that time. So I will have no sunlight. So the only time of the year where I can actually go to that place to see the people coming out of the office are in months of May, June, so that the days are longer and it's not dark yet. It's the golden hours. So it's absolutely perfect. In terms of light, that's the best light I can get. But I can only achieve that in the months of May or June. I can't go in winter because it would be dark.
No, and again, working with restrictions. In this case, in daylight availability. So I think that's going to be the lesson of today's podcast, and because I'm going to start wrapping it up here. So I think work with constraints is probably the most important one. So thank you, Aude, for the time and insights. And of course, if anyone wants to follow her on Instagram or her website, I will link those in the description. And of course, also make sure to follow the podcast for other episodes. And feel free to share this episode with friends who might be interested in the topic, who maybe needs to work with restrictions a bit better. And see you next time.
Thank you, Frédéric. Thank you so much.